The Targaryens are the reason that houses Tully and Tyrell are in the positions of power that they currently find themselves in. So, why is it that the Tyrells have to act so much more cautiously than House Tully does? Now, the biggest reason for the differences in how House Tyrell and House Tully behave has to do with the region that they are in charge of. The Tyrells are now in charge of the Reach. The Reach, who was formerly under the rule of House Gardner, has now been put under the hands of House Tyrell, who used to be their stewards. So they used to be kind of like the administrator of the building, and now they find themselves the owner of the building, which had been unified under House Gardner for a very, very long time. And that is what's really important here. The Riverlands have never known that sort of stability and that sort of continuity that the Reach has known, and so the relationships between these families are actively different. So because the Reach had been under that continuous rule of House Gardner, a sort of hierarchy kind of was able to establish itself, which is why the houses that were just under the Gardners, those older sort of important quote-unquote families, were so incensed when House Tyrell basically jumped the line and got to have the new shiny castle in Highgarden. This is a region that has not known a shifting in the hierarchy before and is now having it imposed on them by the fire-breathing, blonde, very pale, purple-eyed people. So it's weird. The Riverlands, on the other hand, despite also being one of the regions of Westeros that is super fertile, it's great for farming, it's temperate, it's a wonderful area to like build and try to sustain a population, similarly to the Reach, but unlike the Reach, it is positioned a lot more centrally in the continent, so everyone gets to see how nice the Riverlands are, and so everyone gets to crave it and want to subjugate it. And so for the entirety of its history, the Riverlands have constantly been cycling through kings and different like kingdoms popping up and trying to claim dominion over the region. You've had the Fishers, you've had the Mudds, you've had the Justmans, you've had the Brackens, you've had the Blackwoods, you've had the Teagues, you've had just, successive kings, one after the other. They build a kingdom, they rule it for a little bit, something happens, it collapses, anarchy, everything breaks up into a bunch of other little kingdoms, and then eventually it gets reunited under a house yet again. And so because of this, one of the features is there is no central castle that has, continuously ruled the Riverlands for an extended period of time. Highgarden has been the seat of the Reach forever, so when Highgarden is handed over to the Tyrells, that is weighty, that really means something, that is a symbol of power that is being bestowed upon them. Because the Riverlands have continuously shifted who's in charge, there has never been a sort of agreed upon like central ruling seat or house. The ruling seat has just been the seat of whatever king at the time was able to, muster up the force to say, I'm in charge for any length of time. And so this is what makes the optics of the Tullys, kind of ascending to that higher up position, interesting in comparison to the Tyrells, because the Tullys have always had Riverrun and they have never aspired to rule. They have never claimed any kingship. They don't really descend from kings. But what House Tully has been very good at is being useful to the kings who are around at any given time. And so because of that, while never the main character, House Tully appears in the history books always kind of there in the periphery. They've married into a lot of these families. They have connections all over the Riverlands because they're just that person who's always there and ready to help. They can be counted on as very good, loyal bannermen when it is time to go to a war, and when their side loses, they are more than willing to go to the other side and then offer their services and be like, hey, you just killed all of our last person who was in charge. We're happy to now, realign with you guys since you guys won. Can we be of service? And it's a sort of attitude and this kind of flexibility to change allegiances when one is good and dead that has allowed them to accrue kind of power and influence. So the way they even get Riverrun, the area gets given to them, I believe it's Axel Tully. Axel Tully goes and builds Riverrun after he joins one of the new Andal kings who is just taken over, because the Tullys used to fight for House Mudd, who were kind of like the last big first men kingdom in the Riverlands. They would eventually lose, and once House Mudd is now fully gone and dead, they go over to the new ones, who I can't remember who they were. Okay, I pulled the book out. So it says that Edmure Tully was the first kind of known Tully that we had. And he fought for Christopher IV Mudd. He was the last of those First Men Kings I was talking about. They lose, and then his son, Axel Tully, goes over to the winning Andal family, who is House Vance. House Vance was like, yeah, sure, you can be on our team. They give him the money, and with the money, they go and they build Riverrun. Now, because Riverrun is located in a very useful area, kind of close to the Westerlands, and it's a good place for trade, being along, I think it's the Blue Fork. If it's not the Blue Fork, tell me it's not the Blue Fork. But anyway, because of where they are located, is a very good place where they are able to continually amass, again, more wealth, more status, as they kind of become the middlemen for a lot of trade in the region. But again, never the main character. Lots of kings are coming and going, and always, 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 House Tully is there to be helpful and useful. And so because so many of these houses continually believe that they have a good claim to the Riverlands, they're constantly fighting each other, and they're constantly weakening themselves against each other as foreign kingdoms also start, trying to stake their claim. The Storm Kings from the Stormlands, the Durandons, they would eventually come in and basically take over the Riverlands for a while. And then on the other side, the Iron Islanders would also come down and take the Riverlands away from the Stormlanders. And all this time, in the midst of this happening, there are still like little rebellions going on within the Stormlands, where a lot of these, Blackwoods and Brackens are still fighting each other, being like, I'm the real king! And so, in a big twist of irony, when Aegon the Conqueror shows up and the Riverlands are currently under the rule of House Hoare of the Iron Islands, the Brackens, the Blackwoods, all of the other houses that maybe would have a claim to be like, I should be in charge, are too weak because of all these rebellions. And so the strongest house in the region at that point in time are the Tullys. And the Tullys, who know how to pick a winner, as we've established before, they immediately see Aegon and were like, we're on your team. The Iron Islanders, by this point, have been ruling for, I want to say, about 100 years, and they are not popular. They have been, torturing the people of the region. They were having everyone build Harrenhal, which is a mess, and so they're using lots of, labor from the region. It's just, no one likes them. So the Tullys, when Aegon wants to, build up an army in the Riverlands, they go straight to Aegon. They're like, hey, we're here, we're on your team, let us help you start to pull other families and start building the army, with us kind of helping to coordinate that. And so, because they are the richest house, they are the one who is able to organize things, and they're the first to come over to Aegon, Aegon's like, great, you're in charge of this region now. And so the Brackens, the Blackwoods, the Vances, the Mallisters, it doesn't matter because they were always thinking about scheming getting to that top position. Meanwhile, the Tullys have been slowly building soft power for thousands of years at this point. And more importantly, they know when to deploy it. So all it takes is Aegon the Conqueror being like, hey, Harrenhal, goodbye, you're on fire now. Well, who's going to be in charge after I leave? Because, I'm not going to be ruling from Harrenhal. This is now a melted pile of whatever. I don't want to live in the Riverlands. I'm Aegon the Conqueror. I'm gonna go somewhere else. So who am I leaving in charge? Why, the Tullys of Riverrun, of course. And Riverrun is now going to become the central, location of the Riverlands. It's now basically the seat of power, just like Highgarden is in the south. Why? Because House Tully knew how to wait and bide their time. And though fighting in the Riverlands would obviously continue well into House Tully's stewardship of the region, it was always very, I want to say, self-contained. So, the Brackens and the Blackwoods, yeah, they're going to keep fighting, and the Tullys know that. So they're going to, let them expend their energy on each other, and then weaken themselves, and then House Tully never really has to worry about them really turning on them, at least until we get closer to the modern day, and then there's other things going on. Anyway, let me know what you want me to talk about next. Y'all have a good night. Cake, bye.